it's Congresswoman Terry Sewell, and I'm so excited today to be joined for a special edition of Terry Talk. 60 years ago this week, on September 15th, 1963, four precious little girls, Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, Cynthia Morris Wesley, were killed in a horrific bombing at the 16th Street Baptist Church. Today, we are reflecting on our painful past because we know efforts are afoot to erase our history. Now more than ever, we must make sure that everyone understands the struggles. Every gain that we had in the civil rights movement and the voting rights movement came at a cost, a high cost. The cost for the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was the death of these four little girls. It's never lost on me that I get to walk the halls of Congress as Alabama's first Black Congresswoman because those four little girls never got to fulfill their dreams. I think all of us are humbled by the thought that four precious lives were lost that day. I am joined today by the sister of one of those four little girls, Lisa McNair. Lisa is the sister of Denise McNair, one of the four little girls killed in the attack. Lisa, thank you so much for being here today. I can't help but think of the first time I passed a bill. You were present.
Yes, I was.
Signing of the bill. My very first bill was at the 10th anniversary of the bombing of the 60th Street Baptist Church in 2013. And my first bill was to honor posthumously the four little girls, giving them the highest civilian honor Congress can give to anyone, the Congressional Gold Medal. We know that that gold medal is housed in the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. It was my honor that day to welcome you and your mother to the Oval Office with President Obama. I think all of us were excited. Hopefully they have a picture up on the screen of that.
Yes, it's beautiful.
I will forever be indebted, I know all of us are, to the sacrifice of your family and the loss of your sister. And I just wanted to talk to you today on the cusp, on the eve of the 60th anniversary, to just hear how you're feeling. How does the 60th anniversary, what are your feelings as we approach tomorrow will be the 60th anniversary. And I know that there's a big program at the 16th Street Baptist Church, and that we'll hear from Justice Jackson as the keynote speaker. But it has a special place in your heart, I know, as her sister. Can you tell us about Denise and tell us about what you're feeling on the 60th anniversary?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you again. And I want to say that the bill that you passed for the girls to get the gold medal was great and was voted on unanimously in both houses.
Hello. Can you imagine the first bill? Unanimous.
Go, girl. But this is just this is not a wonderful, but I'm so glad that the city and the state and people all over are really honoring the girls this week at the 60th anniversary of the bombing. And that just means so much to me. But it also means it's important because we should not forget our history. If we do not learn our history, we are destined to repeat it. And we're repeating several things in this country in different states all over, with governors signing bills that are ridiculous about not wanting to put our history in schools. And so that's very disturbing for me. So I want people to take a page and see and remember this tragedy. And if we keep going like we're going to be in a space like that again. And I don't think anybody wants to go back to that.
Absolutely. So, I know that you and your family have used the passing of your sister to turn your pain into purpose. And can you tell us a little bit about that? And I also want to give a shout out to your memoirs, which are out. Can you tell us a little bit about how you personally have tried to turn your pain into purpose?
Right. Well, I do public speaking. That's what I do. I travel around the country sharing the story of the bombing and our family's loss, but also incorporating how we all are more alike than we are different. And we must not forget our basic humanity as human beings, and remember that, if it happens to me, it could happen to you. And everybody needs to speak up for their fellow man. And then last year, my memoir came out, Dear Denise, Letters to the Sister I Never Knew. And in that, I tell about being part of that first generation of African Americans, my story, my memoir, written in Letters to Denise, about what it was like to move freely in an integrated South. And because I think we haven't really touched on that as a people, there were a lot of pitfalls that happened that we weren't prepared for. And so I talk very openly about that in my book. But mostly I do public speaking because I want people to hear the story and know the story and try to do it a little bit better.
It's so important that we preserve these amazing sites where all this happened in the 60s, but it's also, as you just said, critically important that we hold on to tell those stories, right?
Right,
Because if we don't tell our stories, others will, and they may not get it right. So I
right.
think it's important that, especially someone who has such a profound perspective as you and your family does about the real loss and the price, the cost of freedom
Mhm,
and the
mhm.
cost of civil rights. Every gain that we made in the 60s, whether it was civil rights or voting rights, came at a high cost. And
Yes,
your family bore that cost when
right.
in the loss of your sister. You were talking about our generation. You and I are probably around the same age. We're the first generation of African Americans who got to navigate this world more freely. And how does it feel to know that your sister's loss really helped pave the way for the rights and freedoms that so many of us enjoy today? We wouldn't have a brown skinned girl as vice president
I
right now
know.
had
Right,
we not passed the Civil Rights Act of 65, the Voting Rights Act of 60, the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65. And your sister's legacy is the legacy of Barack Obama, of
mhm,
Kamala Harris, of
mhm.
Terry Sewell. I know I don't get to walk the halls of Congress as Alabama's first Black Congresswoman because your sister can't. And I feel
Right.
an obligation every day, a responsibility when there are rough days for me in Congress, and there are many that are challenging.
I can imagine.
Um, and I just have to remember that, I'm here, but for the grace of God and the sacrifice of others. And it's we have to roll up our sleeves and do our best to pass the baton on to the next generation, right? Each
Right.
generation has to fight for the gains that we've made and earn it, right? Because we know
That's
that
so true.
progress is elusive. Yeah. Can you
Yes,
talk a
that's
little
so
bit
true.
about how you feel knowing that your sister, the loss of your sister really helped pave the way for so many firsts and so much progress that we've made as a people?
Yeah, it means that her death was not in vain, although I would, give anything to have her back.
I know.
But we need to continue to share those stories. We need to continue to remember the four little girls because we got so many gained so much more freedom after their death. And we need to always make that mean something. We just can't take it for granted. And, we as a people, as African Americans, have gained so many advantages and have been had so many things open for us because of that loss. But we can't get comfortable and forget what the sacrifice was because it was just 60 years ago. That is
Yes.
not that long ago. That
No,
is
not at
within
all.
so many of our lifetimes. And we've got to remember that that happened and can happen again if we do not work hard and make sure that it does not.
Well, you said it in one of your earlier responses that if we don't know our history, we're doomed to repeat it.
Mhm.
And we're seeing extremists try to whitewash, school curriculums. We're seeing the banning of Black history from textbooks. Are you concerned about the growing efforts to rewrite our history? And what can average, ordinary Americans do to protect and advance our history, the legacy that is your sisters and so many who sacrificed for us to have the gains that we have?
Well, we have to be a party of one, each person, to speak up and fight. And then that be black people and white people to be our allies. If you see something wrong, you should say something about it. And you should be on top of your elected officials. Y'all work for us, and you know that because you
Hold
do a
them
good job
accountable.
with that.
Hold them accountable.
Hold them accountable. Go to your legislature, go to your city hall, go to your congressman and your senator, write them, text them, email them, annoy the heck out of them when they're doing crazy stuff like this. And only it's our job to keep you guys accountable. They can't
Absolutely.
do this stuff in a bubble. And if enough people speak up, and that's just the problem, not enough people who see what's wrong speak up about the wrong. And Dr. King talked about that. It was not the people so much who were doing the dirty work. It was those people who were silent. We cannot be silent witnesses. This is way too important.
I mean, your silence can be taken as complicity, right? I
Exactly.
mean, right?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
like your inaction is you're saying something by your end. So do you think that the biggest challenge, what do you think is the biggest challenge, in the years ahead of us? I dare say that old battles have become new again. We're
Yeah.
seeing, I think that if, you like me, probably, I thought that the women's rights movement and reproductive rights was fought by our mothers and our
Yeah. Yeah.
foremothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a one fight. But look what the
Right.
Supreme Court did in overturning
Yeah.
Roe v. Wade. And
Right.
look what's going on across, right now in the state of Alabama. Our senator is holding hostage military appointments.
That
And
is just the craziest thing. Ugh.
just because the Army, the Secretary of Defense sent out an edict saying that we have to help women, when they have medical procedures. It's a health crisis. It's not just
Right.
about
Right.
one
Right.
thing. And so, anyway, I don't want to get into the battle of that, but I do want to acknowledge that old battles have become new again, and
Mhm.
we're fighting for voting rights right now.
Right.
Are
We
waiting
really
on the
are.
redrawing of lines in our
Mhm.
congressional map right now.
Mhm.
And we thought, not only did we think that during our mother's lifetime they fought for women's rights, but John Lewis, didn't he win us? Didn't those foot soldiers win us the right to vote? And yet
Right.
we're still trying to restore the Voting Rights Act.
Right.
What does that tell you about where we are in history now and what you see as the challenges and perhaps solutions to the challenges that lie ahead?
So much goes back to our history that is either not being taught or people don't remember, or they were like they will sleep that day in class. But there's reconstruction after slavery was abolished, and there were senators and congresspeople in the South, and immediately afterwards, a number of them. I mean, I don't think we have a handful of them, more than 5 or 6 in the whole Southeast, in this country today, because some
But that's
people
about to change. That's about to change.
woo,
Change is coming.
it's coming. But that I think that's definitely because the people snuck in and they changed laws that were set, and they went back in there, added negative things, and it put us back a whole 100 years. If
Yes.
we don't pay
Yes.
attention and everybody does not get out and vote, we're gonna be back in 100 years. And people say, "Oh, you really think that'll happen? Oh, I don't think that'll happen." Yeah, it happened once before. So if it happened once before, it can happen again. Stop being asleep. I know the term is overused, but wake up. Really,
Yes.
seriously,
Yes. We must wake up.
we must.
And I think that, when I'm asked about the 60th anniversary and what it means to me, I often say that it's about remembrance, remembering
Mhm,
the lives that were lost. I think it's
mhm,
important to acknowledge that while we lost four little girls in the bombing, Miss Sarah still lives and
yes,
has only one eye, and
right,
then we also lost Johnny Robinson and Virgil
mhm,
Ware that same
mhm,
day. I think
mhm.
it was the mere fact that um, these were children
Yes,
simply
yes,
going about their everyday lives,
right.
going to Sunday school, getting
Mhm,
ready for a children's program at church,
right.
and to have your life ripped out. It changes not only your family's trajectory, it
Right.
changes everyone. I mean, I listened to Gail Pugh talk about being friends, with Carol Roberts and her cousin. I
Mhm.
listened to, the stories that so many, like you said, this is in our lifetime. So there are living,
Mhm.
breathing people who contribute to the living legacy, to making sure that the legacy of those lives that were lost lives on.
Right.
And I think that we all can do our part for sure. But I am just grateful that you've turned your pain into a public purpose of making sure that your sister's life is never forgotten, that the cause and reason for that is never forgotten. Domestic terrorism is what it was. Call it what it
Exactly.
was. I mean,
Exactly.
talk a little bit about that. I mean, people talked about 9/11 being the first domestic terrorism. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Black
No.
folks lived in terror during the lynching era, lived in
Right.
terror during the civil rights era.
Right.
And these were perpetrated by fellow Americans against
Right.
fellow Americans.
Right. Yeah, definitely. We shouldn't forget that and give them a pass. I mean, that was domestic terrorism. 9/11 was horrific, but
Absolutely.
that came from outside. We've had 200 years plus of that coming from inside.
Yeah.
And we can't forget that. We've got to remember that. And it's kind of like when you're doing something you don't have no business doing, in order to make it right, you have to acknowledge first that you did it.
Right.
And then you have to ask for forgiveness, and then you have to go and try to do better, you
That
know?
is so right.
Like, if I eat too much today and had too much fried chicken and cake, I'm gonna see it in the scale tomorrow. But the only way to make that better is to acknowledge that I messed up, find me some vegetables, and then go walking the next morning and try to make it right. Well, America needs to rectify that problem. They need to acknowledge that it was a problem, that it did happen, and now we're going to be the best America we can be by acknowledging it and doing better.
Amen. And not just America, but our own state of Alabama. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit? What is unnerving for me is, when my white colleagues somehow feel like they have to shy away from talking about history
Oh, I know.
instead of embracing that history, because like you said, those stories need to be told so we never repeat it, right?
Right,
and
right.
and here's the thing: out of that horrible time in Alabama's history,
Mm,
horrible,
mhm.
came a civil rights movement that led to a human rights global international
Right,
movement that
right,
changed the world. So
right.
out of that very much painful past of our history, oh, Congress, we're voting. As you can tell, I'm sitting in Washington as we're speaking. Um, we're voting, and we may have to wrap up soon. But
Okay.
I just think that out of our painful past, we have to acknowledge that uh, there was a glorious beginning and progress. That so many we got Richard Arrington as our first black mayor. We
Right.
had if there was so many, there was progress. We still have a ways to go.
That's
We know
true.
that progress can regress. But
Mm.
talk a little bit about what you say to fellow Alabamians, white and black, about our past and about acknowledging it.
Well, I think it's important for them to acknowledge, and Alabama takes pride in being a state of Christian values and God. What they did in the '60s and before was not of God. And if we want to be better Alabamians, be better Christians, we need to acknowledge the racism that still exists and call each other out on it when we see it happening. Like my white friends, when you go home, you know what y'all say when nobody black is around. And if you hear that said, you need to say, hey, that's not okay. I know Lisa McNair, her sister was killed in a bombing, and we cannot do that. This kind of talk led to the death of her sister.
Yes.
So that's the kind of things I share with them. If you're how big is your circle? How many black friends and people do you know? Is it just the security guard at your building, the lady that cleans your house, or the one person in your office? It's a receptionist at your job, or do you really have intimate friends that are people of color like you have intimate friends that are white? You need to open the world up and make your world be a broader place, because only with access and proximity can you love people that you don't know and have a heart for them.
I couldn't agree more. Racism is sometimes about ignorance, just
Right,
not
right,
being exposed to people of
right,
other cultures, of other races.
mm,
We as Americans are often xenophobic about foreigners, and
right, right,
all that
right,
comes from a lack of exposure.
right.
And we have to take it upon ourselves to reach out if others are not reaching out to us, um,
Mhm.
to widen our circles, right?
Right. Yeah, my parents, that was kind of their goal for us after Denise was killed. They put us in predominantly white private school, but even outside of that, every summer was a new experience. Daddy had friends of all races and he brought them around. Daddy didn't go to 16th Street. He went to a small Lutheran church with about 200 people who were black, except for 5 people. The pastor, his wife, and 3 kids were white. So I got to early on have intimate relationships with people who didn't look like me. And I think everybody needs to try to do that because it opens your world up. My world is such a fabulous world of friends that look like the rainbow. And I wouldn't want life any other way.
And you grow from it personally by having that exposure.
Right, right, exactly.
So before we close, can you talk to us about your sister? What are the family memories of your sister? Talk to us about Denise and what you've heard about her growing up and what she wanted to be and what her dreams and aspirations were. Growing up, I know you grew up in her shadow. Can you talk to us about Denise?
Well, Denise, from what I've heard family members say, was a very precocious child. She was very smart. She was quick-witted, and but she was, even at her young age, was about justice. She remembered when the kids were marching in the children's march, and I remember her mom and them saying she asked them, could she go, and they said, "No, you're too little. You can't go." And she looked right back at them and said, "Well, y'all not too little. Why you not going?" And I could just see that in my head and think, now she would have been tough had she lived and had a chance. I'm so excited that our Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is speaking at the memorial service on Friday, because I've always thought Denise would have been a lawyer
Yeah,
and she could have been the first Supreme Court justice had she had
absolutely.
that opportunity to live. So
Or
I
definitely, or replace me. She
yeah,
could have picked me on out.
not work with you in that
Oh,
expedition
work with
we
me.
gonna get.
But you know what I'm saying. The
Yeah,
the possibilities, the endless possibilities one can imagine. We, the world, suffer from not seeing the
yeah,
possibilities of the
yeah.
4 little girls whose lives were lost, and we need to always remember that.
Mm,
The other thing that I think is important, and you've said, and we both stress here, is that we have to make sure that we're passing on the stories and making sure that future generations understand the sacrifice. And you and
right,
I got an opportunity. I think one of my highest honors as a member of Congress was to bring the play. The Alabama Shakespeare Festival put on a play during Black History Month during the year 2013, actually 2017, and they actually brought. They did a play called The 4 Little Girls, and I was able to work with the Alabama Shakespeare Festival to bring those actors who were Montgomery public school children who were acting in this. And the play was called The 4 Little Girls, and it reimagined what the 4 little girls were like when they lived and what they could have been. And you were there as well. It was really moving to see young African American students from Alabama uh,
mhm.
performing that. Uh, you saw it as well. What did you think?
Oh, I thought it was wonderful. I'd love to see it again. I think we
Me
recorded
too.
it.
Yeah.
It was They were so bright and so sharp, and I mean, they could have gone to Broadway. Those
I
were
mean,
some of the best
talented to see
actors,
that talent in our midst.
extremely talented, and it just meant so much that they got to learn about our shared American history too, and they will never forget that, and they will take that with them wherever they go.
Yeah. No, it was I saw it in Montgomery, and I thought to myself, Congressional Black Caucus Week, I'm going to bring that play to DC, and I'm going to make sure that Lisa sees it and that Diane see it and that John could see it. And
I know,
so
so glad he got
I'll never forget the look on those children. You were there, the students'
Yeah,
faces, when they looked out in the audience and they were performing to John Lewis, right?
I
And
know, that was
that's what it's
amazing.
about. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Each one teach one and making sure that we are moving things forward. Now, I know you wrote your memoirs. Where can we find your memoirs?
You can find it anywhere, of course, like it's on Amazon, but any booksellers that across the country. The book is called Dear Denise. And if I was a good author, I would, oh, I do have a copy here.
Very good.
Uh, Dear Denise, Letters to the Sister I Never Knew. So that is the book. And it's a wonderful book. NPR said it was a book that they loved, named it Book They Loved last year. And it's gotten several other accolades. And I've heard good reviews. UA Press published it, and they were like, it's a top seller that they've had all year. So I'm very excited about it. I think people will love it, and it's a book for our times.
Absolutely. I look forward to getting mine signed.
Okay.
So, Lisa, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule, Lisa McNair, for being here and sharing inspiring stories about yourself, your family, and your sister, Denise, and for helping to carry the torch forward to preserve your sister's legacy. She would be proud.
Thank
Now,
you.
to all of
Thank
the
you for
listening
having me.
audience, yes, absolutely. To all of our listening audience, in remembrance of Denise McNair and Addie Mae Collins and Carol Robertson and Cynthia Morris Wesley's legacy, may we take today and every day to make it our very best. Let us recommit ourselves to protecting and advancing the hard fought rights and freedoms won by our forefathers and foremothers. We know that our work is far from over. Indeed, inaction only serves to empower those who intend to take us back.
Mm.
Let's work hard to move forward. I know we can together. Thanks again, Lisa, for joining us for this edition of Terry Talk. And I look forward to bringing additional editions of Terry Talk on very current topics that affect not only Alabama's 7th Congressional District, but this nation. Thank you for sharing this time with us.